Police tripped a black teen. With a deformed leg, didn't know he was a Medal of Valor. Recipient's son. The cold asphalt scraped against Marcus's cheek, a sharp, sudden pain. His crutch clattered uselessly beside him, a metallic protest against the sudden fall. One moment he was walking, minding his business. The next, a heavy boot had swept his good leg out from under him. "Watch where you're going, boy!" A gruff voice barked above him, laced with an unmistakable sneer. Two police officers, their faces obscured by the harsh glare of the streetlights, stood over him, their uniforms dark silhouettes against the neon glow of the city. Marcus, 16, with a slight but noticeable limp from his birth defect, felt a familiar surge of humiliation and a burning righteous anger. This wasn't about him watching where he was going. This was about the color of his skin and the insidious assumption that came with it, an assumption that labeled him a threat, a nuisance, an easy target. He gritted his teeth, pushing himself up with a grunt, ignoring the throbbing pain in his knee and the sharp ache in his hip. He didn't need their help. He never did. His father, Sergeant Elias Thorne, a man who had faced down enemy fire and returned from countless tours with a Medal of Valor pinned proudly to his chest, had taught him self-reliance above all else. But Elias hadn't returned from his last mission with a medal. He'd returned in disgrace, accused of treason, stripped of his honors, and then, inexplicably, vanished without a trace. The official story was a flimsy cover-up, a transparent lie, and Marcus knew it with every fiber of his being. He'd spent the last 3 years digging, sifting through encrypted files, old news reports, and hushed whispers from his father's former comrades, piecing together the fragmented truth. His goal was simple, yet monumental: clear his father's name and expose the shadowy private military corporation, Omnicorp, that had orchestrated his downfall. Omnicorp, he'd discovered, had been working with a rogue faction within the government, using his father as a scapegoat for their illegal arms dealings, a vast network of illicit weapons flowing into unstable regions. The officers, oblivious to the storm brewing within the boy they'd just assaulted, continued their casual intimidation. "Got something to say, kid?" one sneered, nudging Marcus's discarded crutch with his foot, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Marcus just stared, his eyes burning with a silent promise that felt like a physical weight in his chest. They didn't know he wasn't just some random kid. They didn't know he was Elias Thorne's son, and he was about to unleash a truth that would shake their world to its foundations. Marcus had a deadline. In 2 days, Omnicorp's notoriously slick CEO, Arthur Sterling, was scheduled to give a keynote address at the International Security Summit, a highly televised, globally broadcast event. Marcus's plan was audacious, desperate, but his only shot: hack into the summit's main broadcast feed and air his father's final damning confession. A digital file he'd painstakingly recovered from a corrupted drive, a ghost in the machine. It detailed Omnicorp's illicit arms trade, their government collaborators, the names of the powerful figures involved, and the precise methods they used to frame Elias when he threatened to expose their monstrous operation. The biggest obstacle wasn't the encryption, which he'd already cracked with a combination of raw talent and sleepless nights, but getting the file into the broadcast system. He needed physical access, a USB drive, and a moment of pure, unadulterated opportunity. His only ally was Lena, a former intelligence analyst who had worked closely with his father and felt a deep, gnawing sense of guilt over Elias's fate. She'd provided him with schematics of the summit venue and a keycard to a forgotten maintenance tunnel, a hidden artery beneath the gleaming convention center. But Lena was a ghost, communicating only through heavily encrypted messages, her own life hanging by a thread. She was too exposed, too vulnerable to show her face. The night before the summit, Marcus made his move. He slipped through the city's underbelly, his limp a silent, rhythmic beat against the cold pavement. He felt eyes on him, a cold prickle on his neck, the distinct sensation of being hunted. He knew Omnicorp had eyes everywhere. He'd seen the black SUVs with tinted windows circling his block for weeks, their presence a constant, chilling reminder of the power he was up against. This was a race against time, and against a powerful enemy who played by no rules, who had already taken everything from him. He reached the old service entrance Lena had marked on the digital map, a rusty metal door tucked away in a forgotten alley. The keycard clicked, a small, hopeful sound, and he was in. The tunnel was dark, smelling of damp concrete and stale air, a labyrinth of pipes and shadows. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive silence. He moved cautiously, his crutch echoing eerily in the confined space. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the gloom ahead. "Marcus," a voice whispered, low and gravelly. It wasn't Lena. It was a man, tall and imposing, his face obscured by the dim light filtering from a distant vent. Marcus's blood ran cold. Betrayal. Lena. It had to be. He gripped his crutch tighter, his knuckles white. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice barely a whisper, betraying the tremor in his hands. "Someone who wants to help you," the man said, stepping into a sliver of light from a flickering fluorescent tube. It was Agent Miller, a stern-faced, by-the-book FBI agent who had been assigned to Elias's original treason case. Marcus had dismissed him as a stooge of the system, a blind follower of orders. "Lena sent me. She couldn't risk coming herself. Omnicorp knows she's been in contact with you, and they're watching her every move." Marcus hesitated, his mind racing, trying to reconcile this new information with his ingrained distrust. Could he trust him? Miller held out a small encrypted device, no bigger than his thumb. "This is a direct link to the main broadcast server. Lena bypassed their firewalls. You just need to plug it in. The control room is 2 floors up through that door." A last-minute revelation. Lena hadn't betrayed him. She'd sent a contingency, a desperate, brilliant backup plan. Marcus nodded, grabbing the device, his fingers brushing Miller's. "Thank you," he managed, a lump forming in his throat. "Be careful, kid," Miller warned, his eyes scanning the tunnel, a flicker of genuine concern in their depths. "They're already here. I heard them coming in through the main service entrance." Marcus didn't wait. He sprinted, as fast as his leg would allow, up the emergency stairwell, taking 2 steps at a time despite the burning in his muscles. He heard shouts below, heavy footsteps gaining on him, the metallic clang of a door slamming shut. The device felt like a ticking bomb in his hand, a fragile key to his father's redemption. He burst into the control room, a blinding cacophony of screens, blinking lights, and the low hum of machinery. Technicians, startled by his sudden appearance, looked up, their faces a mixture of confusion and alarm. "Nobody move!" a voice bellowed from the doorway, cutting through the hum. 2 burly security guards, Omnicorp insignia emblazoned on their jackets, entered, guns drawn, their eyes immediately locking onto Marcus. Marcus didn't stop. He spotted the main server rack, a blinking green light indicating the active broadcast. He fumbled for the port, his fingers trembling with a mix of adrenaline and urgency. "Stop him!" one guard yelled, raising his weapon. A shot rang out, the bullet splintering the plaster wall beside Marcus's head, showering him with dust and debris. He flinched, a primal fear clawing at his throat, but the image of his father's stoic face, the one in the faded photograph on his desk, spurred him onward. He jammed the device into the port. A progress bar, stark white against the dark screen of a nearby monitor, flickered to life. "Uploading 5%, TUC Tvitem." The guards lunged. Marcus, with a desperate, almost animalistic burst of adrenaline, spun, swinging his crutch in a wide, desperate arc. The metal tip connected with the first guard's kneecap with a sickening thud. The man cried out, clutching his leg, collapsing to the ground in a heap. The second guard, a hulking figure with a shaved head and a grim expression, didn't hesitate. He tackled Marcus, sending them both crashing to the cold, hard floor. The impact knocked the wind out of Marcus, his head hitting the ground with a dull thud. His vision swam for a moment, but through the haze he saw it. The device was still plugged in, the progress bar relentlessly climbing. 75%, NP2 Tvitem. On the massive main screen dominating the room, Arthur Sterling was mid-sentence, his face a picture of smug self-importance, pontificating about global security and the future of defense. Suddenly, his image flickered, distorted by static. The progress bar reached 100%. A new video, raw and unpolished, took over the screen. It was Elias Thorne, his father, looking tired but resolute, his eyes holding a haunted wisdom that transcended the grainy footage. He was speaking directly to the camera, his voice clear, calm, and utterly damning. "My name is Sergeant Elias Thorne. I am not a traitor. I was framed by Omnicorp and elements within our own government for refusing to participate in their illegal arms trade. They silenced me, but they won't silence the truth." He detailed the dates, the names, the illicit deals, the black sites where he'd been held, the sheer scale of their depravity, his words echoing with the weight of absolute truth. The control room erupted in a cacophony of shouts and gasps. The Omnicorp guards, who had been struggling to subdue Marcus, froze, their eyes glued to the screen in utter disbelief and dawning horror. Arthur Sterling's face, projected on giant screens across the summit hall, across the world, contorted from smug self-satisfaction to pure, unadulterated terror. The audience, initially confused, then horrified, gasped collectively. News cameras, instead of capturing Sterling's carefully crafted speech, were now broadcasting Elias Thorne's chilling confession to millions across the globe, a truth bomb detonating in real time. Marcus, pinned to the floor, his body aching, watched, a triumphant, tearful smile spreading across his face. It was done. Justice. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic for Omnicorp. The broadcast, instantly dubbed the Thorne Tapes, went viral within minutes, dissected by news outlets and citizen journalists alike. Investigations were launched with unprecedented speed, fueled by public outrage. Arthur Sterling, his face still pale with shock, was arrested on stage, his grand address ending in handcuffs and public humiliation. The corrupt officials implicated in Elias's confession, their names now public and their reputations in tatters, were swiftly brought to justice, their careers and lives shattered. Agent Miller, it turned out, had been working covertly for years, a lone wolf within the FBI, patiently gathering evidence against Omnicorp. Elias Thorne's confession was the final, irrefutable piece he needed, the missing link that connected all the dots and provided undeniable proof. He had used Marcus as bait, knowing the boy's fierce determination and his technical prowess, to draw out Omnicorp's security and ensure the broadcast happened at the most public, undeniable moment possible. Marcus, no longer just the kid with the limp or the troublemaker, stood tall, his name now synonymous with courage and truth. His father's name was cleared, his Medal of Valor reinstated posthumously, a symbol of true heroism restored. Elias Thorne, it was revealed, had not simply vanished. He had been held in a desolate black site, subjected to brutal interrogations, but had, with incredible ingenuity and unwavering resolve, managed to record and smuggle out the digital confession before his death. His sacrifice had not been in vain. It had ignited a wildfire of justice that swept through the highest echelons of power. The two police officers who had tripped Marcus, their casual racism and abuse of power now under intense scrutiny, were among the first to be investigated, their actions exposed as part of a wider, systemic pattern of corruption and prejudice within the force. Marcus looked at the news reports, the headlines screaming Omnicorp scandal, justice for Thorne, and felt a profound sense of peace settle over him. His father would be proud. The world, for a brief moment, felt a little more just. Disclaimer: this story is a fictional dramatization created for entertainment purposes only.